What happens when a world-class nutritionist uses blood panels, cellular biology, and fact-based science to create and monitor healthy eating plans with supplements for her clients? Everyone wins. Welcome to Power on Your Plate with Haylie Pomroy, an educational experience that gives you both the actionable and practical tools you can use every day to get your health, weight, and life back on track.
Hi guys, I have the most incredible guest today. I'm always telling you that I travel all over the world collecting these brilliant minds that have ideas and practical research and clinical experience of changing people's lives, that advocate nutrition and putting power on your plate and really want you to have the answers and the success that you deserve. Well, today we have a superstar in integrative and functional medicine. I am pleased to tell you that we are going to be talking with Dr. Annette Fornos. She is part of the very powerful team at the Institute for Neuro Immune Medicine. We're here at Nova NSU in Davie, Florida, and we're going to talk to Dr. Fornos about COVID long hauler. Dr. Fornos attended the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine. She went to complete her residency at Jackson Memorial Hospital. And before joining our group, she was the assistant professor of the University of Miami's Miller School of Medicine. So we are so fortunate to have this incredibly intelligent, well-rounded physician that is here for all of us to help us get through this crazy thing we call COVID long haulers. Okay, guys, so we're going to start this amazing interview with a very dear colleague and physician that I admire so much. She is with the Institute of Neuro Immune Medicine. You guys know I talk about that place a lot. Annette Fornos, thank you so much for being here today for our community and all of the people right now globally that are dealing with this very important issue. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Haylie. I'm, very excited to be here and spread the word about this syndrome that we have been dealing with for quite a time right now. As part of the Institute of Neuro Immune Medicine, we do see quite a bit of patients suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome, and now with the pandemic, suffering from post-COVID syndrome, which is very, very similar. So I'm honored and very pleased to be here today. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you just said something that, right away got my curiosity going. So at the Institute for Neuro Immune Medicine, we have this, longevity, this history, this legacy of really being at the forefront of neuroinflammatory disorders. Can you tell me a little bit about some things that we see that are unique at the Institute for Neuro Immune Medicine?
So we see a wide variety of complicated patients. I think our patients, 99.9% of our patients are very complicated. They have been suffering for many years, have been to many specialties, and have very complex condition that fall under the umbrella of chronic fatigue syndrome or myalgic encephalomyelitis. The culprit of among all the symptoms of myalgic encephalomyelitis, the classic symptom is fatigue, very exacerbating, severe fatigue for a long time that had sort of an acute origin, usually following an infection. Patients are often able to pinpoint when they start feeling sick, and it's a drastic change from the way they used to lead their lives prior to feeling ill. What's very interesting about this type of fatigue is that it's non-restorative. It doesn't get better with rest proportionally to the amount of rest that the patients may
sleep or rest. Absolutely. So I'm going to back up just for a second, because I am so fortunate that I get to spend one-on-one time with you, but I'm just going to take it back a second. So the Institute for Neuroimmune Medicine, guys, is at Nova NSU in Davie, Florida. We are an institute that has complex patients, and you said it perfectly, especially with the chronic fatigue syndrome and Gulf War syndrome. Our clinic is at full capacity, right? And so it's not like we are going to have everybody, call the phones and make an appointment right now, which Annette and Dr. Fornos, is why it's so important for us to have this precious time with you. So you just said something really powerful for our community. and that is that with chronic fatigue, and now we're seeing with COVID long haulers, that there's a fatigue that happens, it's systemic, and that it's not restorative. So I just want to, we get a lot of comments in our community that they are very frustrated. They go in and see their doctor, and their doctor says, why don't you take a week off work? Why don't you take a vacation? Why don't you get a little sleep? And what I'm hearing you say is that's not the remedy for success, that that's not what's going to be curative or treatment for this particular disease, both chronic fatigue and now COVID long haulers. Is that right?
It's right, Haylie. So rest is a very crucial part of the treatment and the healing process for any illness in general, especially for chronic fatigue syndrome or long COVID syndrome. Rest is a very important part, but here at our institute, we also look at the patient as a whole, look at the underlying causes, things that may have led to the development of this condition and the treatment. So it's not sufficient to rest. Our patients, part of our recipe is pacing, which involves resting as much as needed, patients learning to recognize their bodies, how they feel, and be able to preemptively pace or rest, and that way, by planning their activities, conserve energy. But that in and on itself is not enough.
So you said a lot there, and actually my brain's going back to something that you said before. I want to just get this right out of the way. For all of you that are struggling right now, that have had to either struggle with something like ME/CSF, chronic fatigue syndrome, or are right now struggling with COVID long haulers, we want you to know that I've got one of the most, powerful physicians here with me, that you believe them, I believe you. And we've got to now kind of almost step past that, because I think that a lot of people are not either self-identifying, or when they do, they're getting turned away by their physician. So at one of the world's leading institutes in neuroinflammatory disorders, and one of the top physicians there, Dr. Fornos, can you just talk to the community about, on the mental emotional side, that if a person's feeling this way, give me a little bit of a vision of what the syndrome looks like, and that as a leader in this industry, that you believe their symptoms. I mean, that I can't tell you how heartbreaking it is, how many times we just want you to know we believe you first and foremost, because you guys went through this for years in ME/CSF and chronic fatigue syndrome. And now we're seeing the same thing happen to patients with COVID long haulers. So can you just speak to the community and all those people out there that are struggling right now?
Of course. Here at the Institute, we spend a great amount of time with our patients. Okay, our visits are a first-time visit may take up to from 2 to 4 hours. I've spent sometimes up to 4 hours with specific patients, and that gives us time to really listen to their story. There's a lot of information in their story that obviously, in the constraints of traditional medicine, which I have practiced for many, many years, there is not enough time to really understand the whole picture from the patient's perspective and from the patient's side. There's a lot that we don't know, and there's a lot that we learn every day by listening to our patients. And so in terms of the mental health suffering that's involved, not only in suffering from these chronic conditions, but in the frustration of not being heard, not being understood, not being able to live the lives that they're used to, it's very scary, and that would add up to the whole syndrome. So even though depression and anxiety are not the cause of chronic fatigue syndrome or are not the cause of post-COVID syndrome, they, for some patients, become part of their suffering and needs to be acknowledged. Absolutely. That's one of the points that I wanted to talk about today. It's what we can do as a community, as patients, and as physicians and healthcare providers to help our patients with this very real and debilitating suffering that's, has come on in their lives as a result of being ill and did not precede the origin of their illness.
I want to take a really quick break to get you guys some information that I think you're going to need.
Hey guys, it's Haylie here. Having a hardcover copy of the Fast Metabolism Diet book can be critical to your success. It is a workbook that's going to help you get healthier today. If you don't have a book, or you want to give one to a friend or one of your doctors, just go to HayliePomroy.com/free book, and I'll give you a book. this is what you're going to need to get to the next level. So Dr. Fornos, what we're going to do for the people out there listening is we're going to provide, I mean, first of all, I want you guys to feel super confident walking into your physician's office saying, look, this is a science-based syndrome. This is a neuroinflammatory disorder. It's a complex disease. I always tell you guys, fill out your request for care, or we call it a Dear Dr. Sanders letter. In our community, we have this letter that we have people really do a self-assessment and a health wish list, and then fill out a letter to the physician before, because most people get, 10 to 15 minutes maybe with their doctor. Now, we call it INIM at the Institute for Neuro Immune Medicine. Like you said, you guys are practicing functional medicine, integrative medicine, immunology, neurology. I mean, everything is there for these complex neuroinflammatory disorders, but most people don't have that capacity. So we're going to do a couple things for you guys. We're going to pull together some white papers, some research papers, some amazing research that's being done on COVID long haulers, so that you can go in, I'm going to use the word, supported with some science-based data. And you're going to also say that your new community advocate, Dr. Annette Fornos, believes in you. So you have all kinds of support. You've got me, you've got Dr. Fornos, and you've got this community at Institute for Neuro Immune Medicine that wants to and is pushing hard to find treatment and to find a cure and to find success to get you guys out of the suffering that you're in. There's something that you said that just kind of, I've been waiting for the opportunity, but you know me, I'm just going to jump in. You had talked about virus. We all know that, boy, one of the blessings of COVID is that we all learned a little bit about viruses, but that with ME/CSF, and we're now seeing it with COVID long hauler, we're seeing some reactivation of historical viruses like EBV or Epstein-Barr virus. So if there's patients out there before, and gosh, I want to ask you 50 million questions. I've got to slow down. You promise me you'll come back if I don't get everything answered?
Promise.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay. So what are you seeing in COVID long hauler patients? Are you seeing a reactivation of historical viruses? Is it this virus that's causing it? What's kind of going on?
It's a very difficult question to answer, right? When a patient comes to us for, let's say, for post-COVID syndrome, symptoms post-COVID infection that have lingered for several weeks or that be gone several weeks after the infection, and there's a whole classification depending on the duration or the initiation of those symptoms, they come to us because they don't feel good, period. They can say, I had COVID, whether I was vaccinated or not, and then whether my illness was mild or severe. And then after COVID, I kept on feeling, or I began feeling very fatigued. My brain is not working the same way. I am having all these issues with, I'm unable to work, I'm unable to function, I'm unable to be the person that I used to be, and many other symptoms that can occur. And
can we list those really quick? So I wrote down fatigue, I wrote down brain fog. What other, and I know sometimes the taste and smell, but like you said, that we could be someone that had a very mild case. What are some other symptoms?
So it's true. It could be somebody that had a very mild case of COVID, and then suddenly they're post the isolation phase, and they feel a lot better and just try to go out and about and follow their lives the way they have led them before, just to be stuck a few weeks later with the onset of these symptoms, such as fatigue. Fatigue could be very debilitating. Everybody's different, but it's significant enough for that particular person, right? Because we need to compare that person to that person before having COVID. It's in a personal and individualized basis. That's very important. So fatigue, that is the very debilitating. Some people that used to be active runners are unable to jog, are unable to go for walks. Some people that lead a sedentary lifestyle may not be able to cook for their family. So it all depends relative to before and after. And that is very important, because that fatigue doesn't get better with the same amount of rest that a normal person the person who's healthy would put in. So we can have busy days and be tired, go to sleep, wake up the next day, feel refreshed, recover. This doesn't happen to people suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome or post-COVID syndrome. It takes a very large amount of rest. And sometimes that's not even enough, because we can have something that's called, we call it tired but wired. It's the sympathetic nervous system being overly activated. So no matter how much you try to rest, it's never refreshing.
So I just want everybody to hear what you just said. So tired and wired, we talk about that a lot in our community. So, and you said it's the nervous system not being able to re-regulate itself, right? So it's not sleeping deeply, it's not waking appropriately. And it's almost like when we talk about that neuroinflammatory, it's almost like a miscommunication or a crossfiring that's happening. Okay, again, you know my brain. I just have to ask you, you are a warrior in the clinic for your patients. What inspired you to do this? What can you share with our community a little bit about you? Because I'm going to say with you, it's more than medicine. You're brilliant, you're, fierce, but it's more than medicine. You lead with your heart. And if you can share where that came from.
It's absolutely more than just medicine. You're absolutely right. So I'm an internist. I'm a board certified internal medicine physician. And I was trained the traditional way. We all go to medical school, we graduate, we go through residency, we take many board exams, and we become board certified in our specialty. And after many years of working as a primary care physician, I think there's always some sort of meant to be, or your personal legend, or your dream, whatever it is that you're here to do and fulfill in this lifetime. And it just so happened that I learned from my patient that what she had done when she was sick. And she mentioned A4M, the American Academy for Anti-Aging Medicine, everything that she learned as a patient. And that was about 2015. And I became very curious, and I started going to their conferences, taking their courses, and it opened a whole new world. The first thing that I noticed was how little we knew as a medical community, and how much more potential there is to learn, and how we will never sort of fulfill that yearning for learning and helping. So that's what led me to studying and becoming certified by the Institute for Functional Medicine, the American Academy for Anti-Aging Medicine. And then I had the opportunity of meeting this amazing team at NOVA, the Neuro Immune Institute, and it just blew me away. I had the opportunity of joining this team during the pandemic, which was a very special time. And, I'm honored to be there. I learn every day from my colleagues. We're so wide array of individuals from multiple backgrounds that it's amazing how much learning we do from each other, and how much collaboration, and how much we learn from our patients. So that's very important to point out, that our patients are really educators for us every single day.
And we just had our clinical meeting this morning. So everybody knows, everybody is integrating all different aspects of medicine. And I want to get to some things that you're seeing that work with the patient. So I have an autoimmune disorder. This is why I'm not, this is my drive, or what's caused me to find answers for people. It was an awful struggle for me to find physicians that, I have ITP, so my platelets, were trashed. And when my platelets would come up a little bit, they would say, okay, you're not scaring us anymore. You're okay. Go live your life. And I'm like, but you don't understand. Like, I'm bruising when I ride my horses. I'm bleeding when I brush my teeth. I'm, fatigued. I have muscle weakness. It was so hard to get somebody to put together a program and a plan for me to be outrageously healthy. I always tell my community, like, I'm not looking just to have good labs. I want to be outrageously healthy. I want to swing from the chandeliers and have this big, amazing life. And I know that you advocate that for your patients too. And have you been through any, even as a doctor, have you ever had a struggle getting appropriate care?
Well, as a doctor, I'm very open to modalities and alternatives that are a part of integrative medicine that, unfortunately, as a patient, sometimes I did not receive when in need. And I don't want to place any blame, because remember, we do the best we can. When I was a primary care doctor, before all this beautiful training, I had no idea of all these modalities and interventions that can be done. So yes, we have all suffered from that. And I think that's very important, because it humbles us and it allows us to put ourselves in our patients' shoes and, and see. what it is, how it feels like from the other side. And if I may share a little bit more about personal history, since you shared yours, I found out a few months ago, or maybe a year ago, that I have Epstein-Barr virus reactivation. I have no idea when I had contracted Epstein-Barr virus. So this is another important point. You can live your entire life feeling healthy, having some viral infections, your immune system is capable of keeping it under check. And then something happens, something else happens along the way. We call it total toxic burden. The body is suddenly unable to deal with all of the burden, the inflammation, whatever it's dealing with. And now you have many possible syndromes, including viral reactivation. So that's one of the, what we're seeing every single day. And also, I happen to have been diagnosed with Sjogren's syndrome, which is an autoimmune disorder. And, I never ever thought that I could have an autoimmune disorder. And I probably had it many years ago. Oh, yeah, that's right, when this happened. But
right.
would not believe it or face it or acknowledge it until it's right there in your face. So that's very important. And, for our patients to know that they could have had very mild COVID, but before they had that COVID infection, they probably could have had other dormant viruses or just a lot of stress in their lives or autoimmune conditions that have not manifested themselves yet. And then now they get a new insult. Their immune systems are unable to keep all this inflammation under check, right? Because there should be a balance between inflammation when appropriate, but also shutting it down when it's no longer needed. When that mechanism fails, we are dealt with chronic inflammation, which is the basis for chronic conditions such as post-COVID syndrome, chronic fatigue syndrome, viral reactivations, among many others.
That's, yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that. I think sometimes, we have to remember that our doctors are human, right? Because sometimes we expect you to be superhuman and swoop in and have all the answers. But I think that vulnerability and that authenticity is what I've seen kind of across the board at the Institute for Neuro Immune Medicine, where, everybody's there to help. Like, let's just figure these complex cases out. So I want to share, because our community isn't in Davie, Florida, or maybe they are, but they're all over the world at this point. Let's talk about, let's kind of distill it down to 3 things that someone that's dealing with COVID long hauler can focus on, that it can help to reinfuse their body. Like you said, a body that has reached what we like to call a lot total toxic burden, right? So when a person's body is either in an autoimmune state, in a chronic fatigue state, and now in the COVID long hauler state, we want to take the body, and we want to build it up as best as possible, because, we don't have yet some, it's debatable, but like the greatest antivirals that don't cause a lot of problems, like with the reactivation of EBV and things like that. So we want to try to holistically look at these bodies. So you and I kind of talked about some of these top things. Let's hit, I'm all about putting power on your plate. Let's talk about food and supplementation first, and then let's go to some lifestyle modification a little bit next. So in the food world, we want to talk about some anti-inflammatory foods. I have an antiviral soup recipe. We called it the COVID soup. And it got that name because I had major brain fog with COVID. I mean, and I will tell you, I was in a state of panic because being dyslexic, right? I lean on my memory as my crutch because I can't read. Everybody in my community knows I'm 3rd grade, 2nd month. When I set for my graduate level test, they retested it 3rd grade, 2nd month. So it's not getting any better anytime soon, but I can't afford any regression there. And I had major COVID brain. And so I researched a lot of foods and things like that. And so I made this soup and I literally ate that for like 7 days, tons of it. So I'll post that for you guys, but let's talk about some foods that would be, really good to nourish and nurture the body, and maybe some unique foods that could do that. What do your patients get fed with?
So our patients, we definitely focus on nutrition, very important, fuel for the body, fuel to produce energy, but also these nutrients are helping also as antioxidants to get rid of all that oxidative stress. So I always tell my patients, think colors. You don't need to know if you don't know all the vegetables, okay, just imagine a rainbow. Just make your plate as colorful.
Yes.
Or as much organic and colorful as possible. Make a nice rainbow, and the brightest the colors, the more intensity, right? The higher the intensity of the nutrients, but also the different colors have different nutrients, like the purples, the berries with the antioxidants, but green leafy vegetables. That's something that I try to stress out. I also like to stress out fiber.
Yes.
Right? It's great for elimination. It's anti-inflammatory, the healthy fats, the omegas, hydration. It's a huge factor. Sometimes when we talk nutrition, we forget hydration.
Yes.
And
so I'm going to stop you one quick second, because what you said was super powerful. So we talk about a rainbow on your plate. We talk about colors. If you are feeling fatigue and you are brain fog, even if you send someone else to the grocery store or beg a neighbor, or you are in a position where your neighbor is struggling with this, or your sister or your brother, think about just going and looking for color. And you are absolutely right. In colorful in carrots, in sweet potatoes, colorful in the green leafy vegetables. That's what we did a soup, because it's so funny because I've made the soup a million times, it feels like, and I give it to everybody that I hear is sick. But I want to you said some gems. And so you guys, I want you to hear colors. I'm a big root vegetable person too when a body's struggling. So things like the daikon radishes are so anti-inflammatory. Sweet potatoes, carrots, beets are so anti-inflammatory. The second thing that you said, third thing I'm going to jump in is hydration. We always tell our community half your body weight in ounces of water every day. So spring water, make sure you're using a clean water source, but we're writing your food prescription right here for you guys right now. If you're struggling with fatigue, brain fog, we want you doing colorful foods, antioxidant foods, and you use the word free radicals. And can you I always say, please in pencils and crayons, explain to our community when you say the word free radicals. I'm just stopping you because it was profound. And when you talk about this whole thing of inflammation, what do free radicals do to the nervous system and the nervous system that make us feel so awful?
So free radicals are pro-inflammatory, highly inflammatory. They're usually intermediate steps. The body goes and attacks viruses, damaged cells by products of metabolisms, and to metabolize or eliminate occasionally will create intermediate steps called free radicals. That's perfectly normal part of the detoxification metabolic process. But the body has very intelligently created a part two, which comes in, neutralizes and eliminates those free radicals. When the burden exceeds our capacity to clear those out, right? Then is when we get into trouble. So we could have either excess inflammation from too much viral load, too much stress, poor nutrition, but we could also have a default system that's unable to handle it because it's lacking the right fuels to do its job. So that's when we have free radical damage. Free radicals can damage DNA. Free radicals can activate the wrong genes, can damage cells directly. They're a risk factor for the development of other inflammatory conditions such as cancer. So they're very harmful, and they tend to stick around when our immune system is not able to keep them in check.
I want to take a really quick break to get you guys some information that I think you're going to need. Hey guys, it's Haylie. This is a lot of stuff we're processing through, and right about now you may have some questions. If you go to HayliePomroy.com/join me, I would love to give you a 30-day free trial of our member community. This is where you go to get your questions answered. I'm there, my team's there, and we can really support you through your specific metabolism journey.
So okay, I'm putting you on the spot here. please, 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 can we just do a podcast on that? Because what you said, and I mean, I am super candid. I've been in clinical practice, 27 years now. And the way you just described that was the biggest aha moment for me. I mean, we hear inflammation, we hear free radicals, we hear, pro-aging, damaging the cartilage, damaging the tissue. But what you just said about free radicals are normal. It's this part 2, the neutralizing it is crazy. I love what you said. So we're please, let's do that. Let's talk about, I'm all about power on your plate. We are huge nutrition advocates at NOVA in general, but Institute for Neuro Immune Medicine. Let's talk about using strategic supplementation. And I know a lot of this is going to be right around that free radical space, anti-inflammatory space, because that's the part of the syndrome that we have to do a correction with neuroinflammatory disorders. We have to evoke a correction in that, because it's almost self-fulfilling or self-perpetuating, right? Inflammation begets inflammation begets inflammation.
Exactly.
So at some point we have to intervene and interject or super infuse with the nutrients that can almost just shift the pathway. So can you give me kind of your top 3 supplements that you enjoy in this inflammatory, I always say, I love the supplements for what they do for the body. So I'm like, I love you, you help me so much, or I'm very emotional with my supplements, because I always say they saved my life personally. So what are the top ones when we're dealing with the inflammatory response and COVID long hauler?
I have so many, Haylie, but I'm summarize. And one very important point is there are many as there are good nutrients out there in foods.
Yes.
We do not need to use them all, consume them all at the same time. So I'm going to throw in some examples, but don't think that because you don't take all of them, you're not doing it right. I'm going to try to stick to the simpler ones that you can do on your own, sort of like the vitamins, the antioxidant vitamins. I love vitamin C. I think we all knew and loved vitamin C as little kids, even before knowing what it was good for. But vitamin C is a very good antioxidant. So yes, when I had COVID and my whole family had COVID, it's a funny story. We started getting sick one by one, and I was the last person to get sick. And I'm like, this is horrible, because I am missing work because I have to quarantine, but I don't know until when, because I keep testing negative. And so finally I did get it, and it was very mild, thankfully, but we loaded up with antioxidants. We took a lot of vitamin C, always do this.
So can I say something on C just for our community? Make sure that vitamin C is not corn derived. So cheap, about 90% of the vitamin C in the United States is corn derived. So we're big, make sure it's beet or palm derived. When we do IV vitamin C's, we do not do corn-derived vitamin C, because it can be pro-inflammatory. Now, you hope that there's enough milligrams of the vitamin C to kind of counterbalance it, but we don't want to put something in that defeats the whole purpose. So I have here vitamin C, and vitamin C is like back from the days of scurvy. It's been so well researched. So I appreciate you bringing that right to the forefront, because it's pretty safe, it's pretty benign, it's a lot of people are very familiar with it. So be diligent about your vitamin C. Thank you. That's wonderful. What would be the next one?
So vitamin C, I love vitamin D. We all know the beneficial effects for bone health. But in addition to that, vitamin D plays a crucial role as an immune modulator. It helps to modulate the immune system. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that it elevates things and it keeps it modulated. The body is very smart. It can do what it needs to do. Vitamin D is one of those modulators that allows the immune system to work properly. Vitamin D is also very good for mental health, for mood. We mentioned that. And this is a huge aspect of post-COVID syndrome, the suffering. So it's very important. And we like our vitamin D levels to be optimal, not just normal. The laboratory will, you will get a test by the laboratory and the reference value will say, well, you're normal. We want it to be optimal, which is not just normal. So what's that number? Do you know that number? The number that we look for is for vitamin D level of 60 to 90. Above 100 to 110, you can experience toxicity. It's not something that will happen in, closer to 90. So to be safe, I always recommend have your doctor, your healthcare provider be involved.
Of course.
Know what you're doing, what you're taking, and measure and follow up. So those two, vitamin C, vitamin D, absolutely.
So on the vitamin D, I'm a big advocate for D3K2. That's okay, good. So D3, I mean, it puts less burden on our body to convert it, and it puts less burden on our body to use it for modulation than a D2. I'm always saying if you're going to put something in, the last thing that we want to do is have it be a stressful introduction. But yeah, I had a couple friends that early COVID were hospitalized at UCLA with COVID. And I have a lot of, friends over there. And I was so excited. I was texting my friend that's works over at the Santa Monica campus. And I'm like, I'm so excited you guys are giving D3K2. Like, I just wanted to cry because you guys are at the forefront of things. It takes a while for people to catch up. And it was very, very exciting. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to let you give us a third. So you guys make sure, and that gem, and we will add this. You can always talk me into anything. You own me. Okay. So just a gem, guys. I want you to make sure that Dr. Fornos told us all that we want us to be working with our doctor and communicating to our doctor that we're, our wish for our health, remember that's your body, is to be at optimal levels of vitamin D. And this does play right into what you said that kind of blew my mind about the antioxidants, which that immune modulation, right? So the ability to clear the free radicals that are normally part of our immune system, and that step 2, being able to clear it. Vitamin D is so important with the prostaglandins. That's where we see it, with our sex hormone modulation. That's why we see it with our mineralocorticoids, our ability to modulate, bone and bone density, blood pressure, all of those things. But definitely we find with those long hauler COVID patients is they're just consuming vitamin D like crazy. And so sometimes to get their levels up to that between 60 and 90, we've got to spot check them and make sure we're getting enough vitamin D3K2 in. So this is such good data. Okay. Number 3.5.
So I'm just going to deviate from vitamins for a second. And Perfect. I want to mention a bioflavonoid called quercetin. So I love quercetin. Quercetin is a bioflavonoid, and it has excellent properties as an anti-inflammatory, an antioxidant, but it also is a mast cell stabilizer. So it has very good functions for the immune system. Remember free oxygen radical, free radical scavengers, remember anti-inflammatories, and remember mast cell activation that can occur post-inflammation. And so you brought in a new term, and so we get to define it. So mast cell activation, the way I do it, pencils and crayons, that's my brain can get it in. I always think of mast cells make you lumpy and itchy, right? They create an inflammatory response, but it can be vascular. So like when all these COVID, and it's not even secondary. We're now considering it a disease of the vascular system, right? Absolutely. But we're seeing this inflammatory response in the vascular system, and you just introduced another part of the immune system called mast cell activation. Mast cells, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, are they also what make you like itchy and sneeze if you have allergies too? They play a role in allergy. So the symptom, the array of symptoms that can be attributed or at least influenced by mast cell activation is huge. The classic ones are allergies, right? The patients who have suffered all their lives. Not that everybody who has allergies has mast cell activation. It's very important. Right. That. But yes, the one that we classically remember is the runny nose, sneezing, watery eyes, rashes. But patients, one that is not very often attributed to mast cells, it's mental fogginess, yes, concentration, and then we get that a lot from patients who suffer from chronic inflammation and from chronic fatigue syndrome and from post-COVID syndrome, is the inability, difficulty with concentration, memory, stress, anxiety that plays a really, important and debilitating role in anxiety, gastrointestinal symptoms as well. So it's very
adult onset of food allergies. I mean, we see that all the time.
Absolutely.
Yes. And brain fog and mast cell activation with our people that are going through menopause, because remember, we have, our hormone signaling has an inflammatory response. Okay. So you brought up mast cells. I love it. Another podcast.
So imagine a patient comes in, Haylie, with anxiety post-COVID. It's normal to have some anxiety after an illness. And then we give them they are being given medications. Sometimes they need them. We give them an SSRI. We give them an anxiolytic, but they have mast cell activation. They have inflammation, and we're not addressing that root cause. We're really not targeting the issue, and we're really not helping enough by not looking at what else is going on in the body. And that's what we try to do here at the Institute.
I'm going to show you something. So I brought this. This is a product that has quercetin in it, and you see why it's orange? That's that bioflavonoid. A food way to get in, that's the metabolism energy. A food way to get in is, we always say, scrape the pith of like your grapefruit. So there's a H-burn smoothie, a hormone smoothie that we have. And we tell you, put grapefruit in your smoothie, but take a spoon and actually scrape out the pith, that white part of your smoothie. It's got a little bit of a bitter, but it's got a lot of bioflavonoids, anti-inflammatory, anti-mast cell stabilization. I love that term. Property. Okay, so look into quercetin. I will tell you, I've been using quercetin, having an autoimmune disorder, for probably 20 plus years. I also, ride horses and have hay allergies, and I have lots of dogs and animals. And so I have always used quercetin a lot. I was so excited when it came to the forefront of research with COVID and COVID long haulers, because it's such a cool food derived, right? Concentrated, like you said, bioflavonoid nutrient. I'm so grateful that you brought that up. What is your other fan favorite?
Okay, this is hard because I have so many more. How about, instead of expanding, I just give you a couple names that I love. Multivitamins, and you can go wrong with a good source of multi, because you'll get your Bs that are super important for mitochondrial function, energy production, and detoxification, and you get more antioxidants there. You'll get lucky if you get a little bit of magnesium and zinc in it. So a good quality multivitamin goes a long way. And omegas. I like the omegas very much, because our body produces something called post-resolving mediators, that after any infection, pro-inflammatory state that is necessary, they come and clean up all the garbage and the residues. When that does,
I'm gonna make you stop, because every time you say something, okay, post-resolving mediators,
and they're derived from omega.
They're derived from fatty acids. So a lot of our community, understands that, and in our community, we're big advocates for fatty acids. We talk a lot about the hormone components, but post-resolving mediators. So explain to me, I heard you say the word, before I rudely interrupted, the word cleaning up the garbage, post-resolving mediators. So our body's done all of this immune work. So sometimes in COVID long haulers, I was just reading this study, actually it was in one of our clinical reviews. I think Dr. Krimis brought it up, about they're finding residual COVID in the stool like 8 months later. So some people aren't clearing the virus. Other people are annihilating the virus, but there's a lot of garbage left that's creating this inflammatory syndrome. So the omega fatty acids can help clean up that garbage.
So omegas are amazing. They're excellent. They're precursors for a lot of other, important mediators and substances in the body. And so pro-resolving mediators are derived from omega fatty acids, and the body is able to produce them in a healthy state and come and clear the inflammation, the residues, whatever needs to be taken away, because it's just a byproduct. When it stays in the system, obviously it doesn't belong there. What's going to do is, like what you were mentioning before, it's going to generate more and more inflammation unless it's cleared out. And so pro-resolving mediators have, the capacity of doing this. When our immune system is not working properly, or, scavenger cells are not not that they're not doing their job, they're doing their job, they're doing the best they can, they just cannot cope. So it's important to give them all the fuel and the nutrients that the body needs to be able to do its job and produce pro-resolving mediators and clear out the post-inflammatory residues and activate that post-inflammatory response and inactivate the pre or pro-inflammatory response.
That's cool. I love for us as a community to understand the why. And I think through the lenses of you being in a neuroinflammatory, complex clinic, it gives you such tremendous insight. We have the ability there to run all kinds of neuroinflammatory labs, flow cytometry, CD8, CD4, B cell activation. Because we have a tremendous research center, we can run all of these things and see not just in theory that something's helping, but what actually manifests in the chemistry. So I think that's why I know there's education and knowledge, but then there's also this unique experience that you bring to the table with these patients. So we as a community out here appreciate this so much. And I have made a list of what I promised everybody. Number one is I promised everybody that you would be back. and then we're going to give them a great rainbow soup, antiviral, we call it our COVID soup in our community recipe. We're going to give you a list that you can download of potential supplementation. We're going to talk about making sure that your D level is optimal. I'm going to get this all organized for you guys. I will also give you the Dear Dr. Sander letter, which is just a way to take all of this incredible data that Dr. Fornos just gave us and organize yourself. So a self-assessment questionnaire, a letter to prep for your doctor so that they can walk in with this really amazing self-reflection of what's going on in their body. Before I know I need to let you go, but can I ask you one last question? What from a lifestyle modification and I know that these nutrients, there's power on your plate and food is going to fuel us and our supplementation is going to help get the neuroinflammatory system remodulated. What can you encourage this community that's currently suffering right now and to do from a lifestyle modification and then also ways to maybe protect our mental health in this process?
Absolutely. It's a huge part. I think if anything, is the most important part to talk to the person that's suffering. The person is first, the illness is second, right? And so, right. So it's important.
Sorry, I'm going to write that in capital. Person is first.
If we don't do that, you're not going to be able to really reach that root cause and work together. And so take care of yourself. First of all, understand that you're suffering and it's okay. It's perfectly okay. You just went through a virus, whether mild or more severe. This is happening to you. There's help. There are people that are willing to help and you're not alone. Number one. Okay. So 3 things. So that brings me to, it's okay to take care of myself. So I don't have to go running. Oh, my isolation is over. My fever is gone. I'm coughing a little. I'll be okay. I'll go back to being the soccer mom, or I'll go back to being the doctor in the emergency room. Yes, you have roles to fulfill, but give yourself a break and try to do it at your own pace, little by little. Take care. Self-care is very important. So I would say rest. Pacing, the concept of pacing, knowing what your body needs and preemptively plan for that. Do not overdo it. Rest, sleep. Okay. And there are other supplements that we can do for that we weren't able to get into. Digestion or nutrition. Okay. Rest and nutrition. Nutrition, very, very important. And we talked about that. Anything that has to do with resting, rest and digest, we're talking parasympathetic. So anything that helps you relax, very, very important.
I have to stop you because what you said is amazing. So we talk a lot about the nervous system and modulation. And in our community, we talk about, there's a reason why you lose most of your weight at night when you sleep, right? But rest and digest is part of so the actual act of feeding yourself, as long as it's not something that's obesogenic or toxic, right? It's actual food and organic and rainbow, even more important, that actually evokes modulation, right? That digestion, adequate digestion actually evokes deep sleep, because that peristalsis of the bowel, and as the GI tract moves, it stimulates those hormones in the brain that cause us to have deep restorative sleep. And lymphatically, during that sleep is the only time our brain can release some of those neurotoxins. So when you just said rest and digest, I mean, I as you know, I'm a nutritionist, so I'm like, nutrition's everything. It is everything. I don't know how else we create any other cell in our entire body, or immune or hormone or anything. It's all nutrient based. It's how we are made up. But I love that concept of rest and digest. And when you talk about pacing, sometimes we'll talk about actually scheduling in, whether you use an electronic scheduler or I'm a paper calendar girl still. I actually, and I learned this when I was going off of prednisone because prednisone, oh my goodness, right? Off of 60 to 80 milligrams of prednisone a day, I had to schedule in time to rest. It's great if you can lay prone, because that does help your autonomic nervous system. Even if you just put your head down on a table, but I would set a timer, and I'm a powerhouse. I mean, I'm, hyper as they come. And I have micro bursts of resting. And I have to use the word micro bursts of resting because it makes me feel emotionally like it's okay if I rest. If I have downtime, I, for some reason in this weird wired brain, pass judgment on myself. So I call it my resting microbursts. And that is, so whatever makes you feel like you're loving yourself and your self-care, it doesn't have to be somebody else's model of self-care. So I had to change the nomenclature to get myself to be at peace with resting.
Absolutely.
So a microburst sounds like I'm off there doing something. And I mean, I lay flat because I've done that testing where you check your blood pressure up and down and how it affects your autonomic nervous system. So I lay flat, no pillow. If I can, I elevate my feet and I microburst rest like the best of them. But that's my version of pacing.
Right. Especially in a society that praises, right?
Yes.
The overdoers, the type A's, the overachievers. And so when we feel the need to rest, we also feel guilty about what we're not doing, or those who depend on us, what we're not doing for them. And I just remember, try to remind my patients what you do in terms of self-care, because you need it right now. It's going to, in the long run, make you more present, more able, more capable to do what it is that your goal in life is, your role in life. So it's, that guilt feeling that we all harbor because we're not used to use self-care. It's a huge barrier to healing and to well-being. And we need to stop. I know you're there, but stay right there. Right now, the time is for me to practice self-care and heal. And that's very important.
Well, that is, I'm going to put that on a script pad. That is a prescription for wellness like none other, right? And I think coming from you and giving that permission, right? And also some of the tools of how to implement it is incredible. So we have this large community out there that I know about 15 minutes in, absolutely fell in love with you and, wish that they were your patient. And, but the amazing takeaway here is that we're going to be doing a series of things that we can give you, things that you can do at home and in your life and for your lifestyle. And so these are the things that are, going to be available to you guys in the community. Dr. Fornos, I cannot thank you enough. Do you have any parting last words for this community out there that is trying to navigate this crazy, never seen before? I just want to throw this one last thing before I ask you that question. The interesting thing and the unique environment that we find ourselves in at INIM is that there is a lot of parallel with what you have been researching and the Institute have been researching for over 10 years. So we have been able to kind of circumvent a lot of the pondering and go right into action from an integrative medicine perspective with day one. I mean, you guys did not stop even when everything was locked down. You guys were treating patients, doing telehealth. T-shirts were made for the Institute that says, we didn't go home. We couldn't go home. You had patients to treat. So first, I thank you for that. And on behalf of everybody that I know is going to hear this, I'm going to just give you an opportunity. Any parting words for everybody out there?
The message, if I had to relay one, the most important message is to seek help. Okay. Understand that you need help. It's okay. There's nothing to fear in terms of losing hope or feeling that you're alone or feeling hopeless. Absolutely not. Look for that support, look for help. We are social individuals. We live in community. We thrive in relationships. Look for a relationship with a healthcare provider. It's not one size fits all. It's not a one pill that's going to cure you. That's different from the traditional model of which, I'm a part of. It's a dual partnership. It's relationship. It's healing. Okay. And then I read this somewhere. Okay. This is not my phrase, but I love it. How illness, right? So illness, if you add, how does it go? It's like if you add a W, it becomes wellness.
Wellness.
How does it go? I forget right now exactly, but yes, you added a we, right? So we. Yes. To illness, how does it read? It read wellness. So that's what I want to stress out. So look for support and and do the things you need to do, right? We've shared some information of things that you can do on your own and do them, okay? The nutrition, the rest, some of the supplements you can do on your own, and have faith and patience and seek help, okay? And if
I love it.
Mental health issues, anxiety, depression, PTSD type of symptoms, insomnia, flashbacks, do not judge yourself. Okay. It's part of the process. It's been happening. It's happening to a lot of healthy individuals, young people. Okay. Adolescents, young girls. So seek help. You're not alone, and you can heal. So that's the most important message. Okay. We can heal.
Right. I love it. Thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough. This, I know you're booked to full capacity. This is such a gift that you're giving right now. And I appreciate your commitment to continuing to help me on this journey. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I will see you in the clinic. Okay. Bye. That was an incredible interview. I love Dr. Fornos. I mean, I feel very privileged to get to work with her at the Institute of Neuro Immune Medicine. We see the most complex cases, but it's that passion, it's that knowledge, it's that heart, like quite frankly, that really seems to bring care to the next level. So you guys, every suggestion and recommendation, has a lot behind it. So make sure that you take action. We will post in the link to make sure that you can download the recommendations. And then I love what she said at the end, that we is what takes illness to wellness. And so we want you to partner with your physician. We want you to bring your doctor, your nurse practitioner, your acupuncturist, your yoga instructor, your family and your friends into the conversation. Make sure you let us know what topics you want to hear next. And just know that I believe in you, we believe in you, and that there is help. There's power that you can put on your plate. Make that soup. It's an incredibly delicious, nurturing recipe. Infuse your body with quality supplements. Make sure that you're taking care of your time, yourself, your self-care. Use whatever nomenclature fits you the best, uplifts you, makes you feel like you are on your to-do list. Until next time, you guys, make sure that every time you digest and rest, you rest and you digest, you're putting power on your plate. Love to you all. Talk soon. Your nutritionist. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another inspiring episode of Power on Your Plate with Haylie Pomroy. Please remember to share the amazing science and tools with someone you love. The more we know, the more we all lift our global health together. Visit www.hayliepomroy.com to get notes from today's show and to take your education and health to a new level of success and happiness.
Information on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for the advice provided by your physician or other healthcare professional or any information contained on or in any product label or packaging. You should not use the information on this podcast for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease or prescribing any medication or other treatment. You should always speak with your physician or other healthcare professional before taking any medication or nutritional, herbal, or homeopathic supplement or adopting any treatment for a health problem. If you have or suspect that you have a medical problem, promptly contact your healthcare provider. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking professional advice because of something you've heard on this podcast. Information provided on this podcast and the use of any products or services purchased as a result of this podcast does not create any type of professional relationship between you and any of the associates affiliated with this podcast. Information and statement regarding dietary supplements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.